A woman's actions will always reveal more than her words. And the moment you learn to read the signs, no one will ever be able to play you again. The attention test is one of the most subtle yet powerful games some women play, and most men don't even realize they're part of it until they're emotionally drained, confused, and questioning their own worth. This test isn't loud, it isn't dramatic, and it doesn't show up with warnings. It's quiet. It slips into your life through soft smiles, warm messages, and a gentle pull that feels like affection at first, but eventually reveals itself as a loop of emotional consumption. The woman who plays this game isn't looking for love, growth, or connection. She's looking for emotional fuel. She wants admiration without accountability, closeness without commitment, and validation without vulnerability. Her goal is not to build something meaningful with you, it's to feel desired, wanted, and important. And because she knows you are a good man, attentive, consistent, and respectful, she sees you as a reliable source of emotional energy that she can tap into whenever she feels bored, insecure, or in need of reassurance. She knows how to appear just interested enough to keep you hopeful, but never invested enough to make anything real. She'll reply with just enough warmth to make you feel like you matter, but she will pull away the moment you get too close. She will send a sweet message when she senses you're becoming distant, just to keep you orbiting around her. She wants your eyes on her, your attention fixed, your emotional availability ready for her convenience. But when you ask for clarity, consistency, or commitment, her tone changes. Suddenly, she's not ready, confused, or taking things slow. Yet she still wants the attention, the energy, the conversation, and the comfort you provide. It's not a relationship to her, it's an emotional subscription where she keeps collecting and you keep giving. The danger of the attention test lies in how it trains you to doubt your own instincts. You start believing she's just busy. You convince yourself her mixed signals are misunderstandings. You tell yourself to be patient, to give her time, to not come off as needy. But this patience turns into self-betrayal when you're dealing with someone who has no intention of matching your investment. She enjoys the version of you who gives without expecting anything back. She loves the comfort of knowing you'll be there, waiting, ready to respond to her late night messages, her sudden compliments, her random emotional check-ins. And every time she feels you slipping away, she gives you a small dose of affection, just enough to pull you right back into her orbit. Men who fall into this trap often start modifying their behavior just to keep her attention. They send longer messages, they respond quicker, they try harder. They treat her with more care than she treats them, hoping she will eventually reciprocate. But she never does because reciprocity requires intention, and she never had any. She's loyal only to the feeling of being desired, not to the person who desires her. The more she senses your emotional attachment, the less she feels the need to put in effort. The more consistent you are, the more complacent she becomes. And the more you invest, the more she withdraws, because the game only works as long as you are chasing, questioning, and hoping. A woman playing the attention test loves having options. She may not be dating other men seriously, but she keeps multiple emotional doors open. Each man offers her a different kind of validation. One gives compliments, one gives attention, one gives entertainment, and you, the one she leans on the most, give consistency. But she never chooses, because choosing means letting go of the supply she receives from everyone else. She avoids emotional responsibility because it threatens the freedom she enjoys, the freedom to be adored without investing, to receive without giving, to take without committing. What makes the attention test so dangerous for men is not the emotional energy they lose, but the identity they compromise. You start dimming your own standards. You silence your discomfort. You ignore the parts of you that crave real connection. You accept breadcrumbs because you mistake them for potential. And while you're busy trying to understand her, she's busy enjoying the power she has over your attention. The emotional roller coaster game is one of the most exhausting and psychologically draining dynamics a man can experience because it strikes directly at his need for stability, clarity, and emotional certainty. This game is built on inconsistency, intentionally shifting between affection and distance, warmth and coldness, interest and indifference. It keeps you in a constant state of emotional guessing, always trying to decode her moods, interpret her silence, and understand what you did wrong. At first, the highs she gives you feel electric. When she is present, affectionate, and engaged, it feels genuine and deep. She knows how to make those moments intense. She shares her thoughts, compliments you, acts sweet, and makes you believe you're building something real. But the moment you get comfortable, the moment you start trusting her emotional presence, she flips the switch. Suddenly, she becomes distant, unresponsive, or cold. She doesn't explain, she doesn't communicate, and she doesn't reassure. She simply withdraws, leaving you to overthink everything. This push and pull pattern is not random, it creates emotional dependency. When she gives you affection and then takes it away, your mind becomes addicted to the highs. You keep chasing the version of her who made you feel valued, hoping she will return. And because you tasted that affection once or twice, you start believing it's still there beneath the surface. You tell yourself she's just stressed, tired, or going through something. But the truth is that the emotional roller coaster is her way of maintaining control, a strategy to keep you emotionally invested without allowing the connection to stabilize. Every time you pull back to protect your heart, she returns with warmth. Every time you start giving more, she pulls away to remind you who has the emotional upper hand. This cycle creates confusion inside you. You start wondering whether you're too sensitive, too demanding, or too difficult to love. You question your own expectations, even when they are completely healthy. A message you would normally ignore suddenly becomes a sign to overanalyze. A delay in her reply feels like a shift in the relationship. You begin adjusting your emotional rhythm around her unpredictability. You become cautious, hoping that if you play it right, she will go back to the affectionate version of herself you first met. But the affectionate version is not her true self. It's the bait that keeps the game alive. Women who play this psychological game understand the power of timing. They know exactly when to give attention and when to withdraw. If you detach, they sense it immediately and show you just enough care to pull you back. A sweet message, a sudden compliment, a thoughtful check-in, small doses of warmth that reignite your emotional hope. But once you lean in again, she returns to distance, leaving you on another drop of the roller coaster. The pattern becomes so familiar that you start normalizing it. You begin thinking, this is just how she is, but it's not who she is. It's how she keeps you emotionally dependent. The emotional roller coaster also creates an illusion of depth. Because the lows feel so painful, the highs feel more meaningful than they actually are. Every time she comes back and treats you kindly, it feels like a breakthrough, like she finally understands you, like you're finally connecting. But what feels like emotional depth is actually emotional instability. She hasn't grown, she hasn't changed, and she hasn't committed. She's simply resetting the cycle. And every reset keeps you hooked because it convinces you that progress has been made. This game works especially well on men who care deeply. Men who are loyal, patient, and emotionally invested become easy targets because they keep trying to fix the connection. You give her the benefit of the doubt. You try to communicate. You try to understand her moods. And every time you step in with maturity, she steps out with unpredictability. What you see as emotional effort, she sees as emotional fuel. The more you try to stabilize the connection, the more power she gains. Your desire for clarity becomes the very tool she uses to keep control. Over time, this roller coaster chips away at your confidence. You begin defining your worth based on her reactions. You stop trusting yourself. You stop believing you deserve consistent affection. And while you're busy managing her emotional fluctuations, you forget to ask yourself the most important question: why does love feel like chaos instead of peace? The backup strategy is one of the most quietly damaging dynamics a man can face because it makes you believe you're important to her, while in reality, she is keeping you as one of several emotional options. A woman who uses this strategy doesn't necessarily want to lose you. She just doesn't want to fully choose you either. She keeps you close enough to benefit from your emotional presence, but far enough so she never owes you clarity, loyalty, or commitment. She builds her emotional world like a safety net, with different men serving different purposes. One offers her validation, another gives her entertainment, another feeds her ego, and then there's you, the emotionally reliable one she knows will always answer when she reaches out. She may not be romantically involved with all of them, but she keeps them emotionally available, each one acting as a backup source of attention, comfort, or confidence whenever she needs a boost. She subtly manages these connections with an almost invisible precision. You might notice she's always texting someone, or that she suddenly becomes distant when another man reappears in her life. She may occasionally mention a friend she talks to often but avoids giving details. She creates an environment where you feel valued but still uncertain, appreciated but not fully chosen. Her words suggest interest, but her actions reveal hesitation. She might flirt with you deeply one week, then suddenly become vague, claiming she's just figuring things out. She enjoys your presence, but she never gives you the emotional space to feel secure. And the reason is simple: she likes knowing she has options. It makes her feel empowered, desirable, and in control. The most dangerous aspect of the backup strategy is how easily she shifts between men based on her emotional needs. When she feels lonely or insecure, she reaches out to you because she knows you'll respond with warmth, support, and stability. But as soon as she's emotionally reassured, maybe another man gives her attention or an ex resurfaces, she pulls away from you without explanation. You're left wondering what changed, thinking you did something wrong, analyzing conversations for clues. But the truth has nothing to do with your behavior. It's simply that her emotional needs got filled somewhere else, so she no longer needs the comfort you provide at that moment. She will return again when that external source fades and the cycle repeats. This strategy traps men because it feels like potential. She gives you enough connection to keep you attached. She tells you things like, "I'm not ready yet, I just need time," or "I want to focus on myself," while simultaneously keeping you emotionally engaged. She may even imply a future. "Maybe someday we'll figure it out. You're exactly the kind of man I want." Or, "If things were different, we'd be perfect." These vague promises act as emotional bait. They are designed to keep you hopeful so you don't detach or demand clarity. She wants you to stay available without requiring her to fully invest. Over time, you start adjusting your expectations to fit her pattern. Instead of asking for commitment, you tell yourself to be patient. Instead of questioning her inconsistency, you justify it. You wait for her to choose you, all while she continues entertaining emotional connections with others. You become emotionally loyal to someone who is emotionally loyal only to her own comfort. Meanwhile, she maintains a safety net of men, so she never has to experience emotional emptiness. You're not the only one she turns to, you're one of several. And as long as you keep playing your role, the stable, reliable backup, she will never feel the need to make a decision. The backup strategy also reveals something deeper about her emotional maturity. She prefers the illusion of options over the vulnerability of real connection. Commitment requires her to let go of the attention she receives from others. Choosing you means giving up the emotional benefits she gets from keeping several men interested. As long as she fears losing validation more than she fears losing you, you remain in a secondary position. And the longer you stay there, the more you slowly lose yourself, your certainty, your confidence, and your sense of what you actually deserve. The testing phase is one of the most common yet deeply misunderstood dynamics men encounter because it rarely looks like a test at first. It often begins with small behaviors that seem insignificant: a slight pullback, a delayed response, a comment designed to provoke jealousy, or a subtle challenge to your boundaries. But beneath the surface, these actions are calculated attempts to measure how much emotional control she has over you. A woman who plays this game isn't trying to build a stronger connection. She's trying to establish a psychological hierarchy where your reactions reveal your vulnerability. She wants to see whether you'll chase when she withdraws, whether you'll get insecure when she brings up another man, whether you'll tolerate disrespect just to stay on her good side. She wants to know how much power she holds, not how much love you feel. In the testing phase, her behavior becomes inconsistent, not because she's confused, but because she's observing you. She'll pull away slightly just to see whether you'll panic or stay composed. She might ignore a message to check if you double text. She may suddenly become less affectionate to see whether you'll begin overgiving to compensate. These small shifts are intentional. They help her map out your emotional weaknesses. If you react too quickly, she learns you're afraid to lose her. If you argue too forcefully, she learns she can trigger you. If you tolerate disrespect, she learns you're willing to sacrifice your standards to keep her attention. Every reaction you give her becomes a piece of data she stores in her mind, shaping how she continues to treat you. What makes this phase exhausting is the lack of transparency. She doesn't communicate her concerns like a mature woman would. Instead of saying, "Here's what I'm feeling," she chooses to provoke reactions. She creates emotional puzzles, expecting you to solve them without any clues. And the moment you start adapting yourself to pass her tests, you lose your authenticity. You stop acting like yourself and start acting like the version of you that pleases her. You become more careful with your words, more cautious with your actions, more attentive to things she hasn't even communicated. You start living in response to her moods instead of expressing your own. And this shifts the power dynamic dramatically. You become the one who's always proving, and she becomes the one who's always evaluating. A woman who enters this phase isn't seeking clarity or emotional closeness. She's seeking reassurance that she is desired, valued, and irreplaceable. The tests aren't about compatibility, they're about control. She wants to know whether she can trigger your insecurities, whether she can influence your behavior, whether she can make you feel uncertain about your place in her life. And once she discovers she can, the tests only increase. They become bolder, more intrusive, more emotionally draining. She may flirt with another man in front of you, bring up her ex more often, or compare you to someone else just to see how deeply she can affect you. She may create unnecessary conflicts to measure your reactions or withdraw emotionally to see if you chase harder. Every emotional shift becomes a tool in her arsenal. Men who fall into this trap often end up feeling emotionally exhausted without understanding why. You start feeling like you're walking on eggshells, trying to avoid triggering another test. You think, if I can just pass this one, maybe she'll relax, maybe she'll trust me, maybe she'll commit. But the truth is that these tests never truly end because they were never meant to lead to stability. They're designed to keep you emotionally invested while she maintains control. A woman who uses tests as a strategy doesn't outgrow them. She relies on them. They are her way of masking her own insecurities. Instead of expressing her fears honestly, she hides them behind psychological games that allow her to feel powerful. The most dangerous part of the testing phase is how quickly it can shift your perception of yourself. You begin questioning your worth. You wonder whether you're doing enough, saying enough, proving enough. You start adjusting your behavior to avoid losing someone who is actively destabilizing you. And while you're busy trying to pass her tests, you forget the truth. Real connection doesn't require constant performance. Real interest doesn't rely on emotional manipulation. Real relationships are built through communication, not mind games. The almost relationship trap is one of the most emotionally deceptive situations a man can fall into because on the surface, it feels like a real connection. But underneath, it's built on uncertainty and intentional vagueness. This trap forms when a woman gives you intimacy, attention, emotional closeness, and daily communication, everything that looks and feels like a relationship, except the actual commitment. She gives you the highs of companionship and the comfort of consistency, but refuses to define anything clearly. You talk like a couple, act like a couple, share like a couple, sometimes even fight like a couple. But the moment you ask where things are going or what she truly wants, she retreats into ambiguity. She begins saying things like, I'm just not ready. Let's see where things go. Or, I don't want to ruin what we have, all while continuing to accept the emotional benefits you provide. In the almost relationship trap, she creates a soft emotional dependency. She gives you just enough affection to keep you hopeful, thoughtful messages, long calls, intimate confessions, occasional sweetness, but she never lets the connection evolve into something official. When you lean in, she leans out. When you pull away, she pulls you back. She hates the idea of losing you, not because she wants to build a future with you, but because she enjoys the comfort you bring into her life. You satisfy her emotional needs without requiring anything concrete in return. And as long as you keep accepting the half love she gives, she never has to confront her own indecision. This trap also impacts your self-worth slowly and subtly. You start adjusting your expectations to match her uncertainty. You stop asking for clarity because every time you do, she becomes distant. You start telling yourself, it's okay, we're not official yet. Even when it bothers you deeply, you start suppressing your desire for commitment because you don't want to push her away. You become emotionally loyal to someone who won't close the door on other possibilities. And the worst part is that she knows you're waiting. She knows you're invested. She knows you care. That knowledge becomes her leverage. She can keep you close without ever giving you the reassurance you deserve. Another painful truth about the almost relationship trap is how often she uses timing as an excuse. She might say she's healing, working on herself, focused on her career, or not ready for anything serious. Yet she expects the benefits of a relationship while denying the responsibility of one. And while part of you respects her reasons, another part of you feels unloved, unchosen, and stuck in limbo. Deep down, you start wondering, if she sees my value, why doesn't she choose me? But the issue isn't your value, it's her emotional convenience. She stays because it feels good, not because she's committed. Men who fall into this trap often stay far longer than they should because the connection feels real. You hope that with time she'll finally decide. You replay the good moments in your mind and amplify them. You cling to the emotional intimacy you share, ignoring the fact that she avoids defining anything. And without realizing it, you begin to settle for an almost relationship because you're afraid of losing even that. But the truth is that the cost of staying in this limbo is far higher than the fear of walking away. The accountability avoidance game is one of the most psychologically draining patterns a man can experience because it slowly erodes your sense of reality, your emotional stability, and your trust in your own perception. This game is played by a woman who refuses to take responsibility for her actions, her behavior, or the emotional impact she has on you. Instead of acknowledging her mistakes with maturity, she shifts blame, twists narratives, creates confusion, and manipulates situations to make you question whether you're overreacting. Her primary goal is not to fix the problem, it's to avoid being held accountable for it. She doesn't want to confront her flaws, admit wrongdoing, or take responsibility for the pain she causes. So she uses emotional deflection as her shield, turning every conflict into a maze where you end up apologizing for things you didn't even do. At first, you might not notice what's happening. It begins with small situations where she brushes off your concerns. If she cancels plans last minute, she claims you're being too sensitive. If she talks to someone in a way that makes you uncomfortable, she insists you're overthinking. If she gives you mixed signals or behaves inconsistently, she tells you that you're assuming too much. Every time you try to communicate maturely, she reroutes the conversation to your emotions, your reactions, your tone, or your timing. She doesn't address the issue. She redirects it. She doesn't apologize. She rationalizes. She doesn't try to understand. She tries to escape. And each time she avoids accountability, she reinforces the idea that the problem is you, not her. Over time, this game creates a psychological fog inside you. You start doubting yourself. You wonder whether your feelings are irrational. You replay conversations, questioning whether you misunderstood something. You begin apologizing for bringing up concerns just to keep the peace. You start lowering your standards for the sake of avoiding conflict. The more you try to express your needs, the more she flips the script until you begin thinking your emotional needs are a burden. This is how accountability avoidance slowly conditions you to silence yourself. You stop speaking up. You stop addressing issues. You stop expecting emotional maturity from her because you know every attempt at communication will be turned against you. A woman who avoids accountability often has a deep fear of vulnerability. Admitting her mistakes would mean facing her own insecurities, acknowledging her flaws, or risking losing control of the narrative. Rather than grow, she chooses to protect her ego by shifting blame onto you. She may use guilt, emotional withdrawal, silent treatment, or even victim play to escape responsibility. If she hurts you, she'll claim she didn't mean it. If she lies, she'll insist you misunderstood. If she disrespects you, she'll say you took it the wrong way. And if you try to hold her accountable, she'll suddenly become emotional, distant, or defensive, making you feel like you're attacking her rather than addressing a real concern. What makes this game even more destructive is how skillfully she adjusts her strategies to maintain control. If you catch her contradicting herself, she'll change the subject. If you present facts, she'll focus on your tone instead of the truth. If you express hurt, she'll minimize your feelings or accuse you of being dramatic. She may even bring up unrelated past situations to shift the attention away from her current behavior. Every tactic is designed to destabilize your confidence and redirect emotional responsibility back onto you. By the end of the conversation, you forget the original issue and start defending yourself instead. This is the essence of accountability avoidance, turning every truth into confusion. Men often stay in these situations because they believe the emotional connection is worth fighting for. You want to understand her. You want to fix things. You want to believe she will eventually grow. But the longer you stay, the more you begin normalizing emotional imbalance. You accept apologies that aren't truly apologies. You tolerate disrespect disguised as misunderstandings. You forgive patterns that never change because she never acknowledges them. And slowly, you start carrying the weight of both your emotions and hers, believing that if you just try harder, communicate better, or stay more patient, things will eventually improve. But the painful reality of the accountability avoidance game is that improvement is impossible without acknowledgement. You cannot fix what she refuses to see. You cannot heal what she denies. You cannot grow with someone who turns every lesson into a blame shift. And you cannot build trust in a space where responsibility is always one sided.